The Vanarans had been running for 3 cycles. Their vast fleet of crystalline ships, normally a testament to their artistic and technological achievements, now bore the scars of desperate flight. Admiral Saren stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Light, her iridescent scales dulled with exhaustion as she studied the tactical display. Another anomaly detected. "Admiral," reported her sensor officer, tentacles trembling slightly. "It's following the same pattern as the others." Saren's inner eyelids flickered in acknowledgement. They'd lost contact with 37 colony worlds in the past cycle alone. The entity they'd awakened in the depths of space, what her people now simply called the Void, consumed everything in its path. Their weapons, designed for scientific research and asteroid mining, might as well have been children's toys against it. "New system detected," announced the navigation officer. "Star Class G2V, multiple planetary bodies." He paused, triple-checking the readings. "Admiral, there's life. Intelligent life. But the readings must be wrong." Saren glided to the navigation station, her ceremonial robes, now worn and stained from weeks without proper cleaning facilities, trailing behind her. The readings showed a civilization in its early space age, having just reached their own moon. But what caught her attention were the planetary conditions. "This can't be right," she whispered. "The gravity is nearly triple our homeworld's. The atmospheric pressure, radiation levels, temperature extremes." She straightened suddenly. "Show me their information networks." The screens filled with images and videos from the planet they called Earth. Saren and her crew watched in stunned silence as humans went about their daily lives. They saw them building cities in frozen wastelands and scorching deserts. They watched them dive into crushing ocean depths and climb mountains for recreation. They observed them fighting fires, conducting rescue operations in natural disasters, and willingly putting themselves in harm's way to help others. "They're insane," muttered her second-in-command. "No rational species would." "No," Saren interrupted, her scales beginning to shimmer with hope for the first time in cycles. "They're survivors. They're warriors." She turned to face her crew. "Our people have known peace for so long we've forgotten how to face adversity. We've built our civilization on beauty and harmony, and now we face an enemy that knows neither. But these humans," she gestured to an image of firefighters rushing into a burning building. "They don't just survive adversity. They embrace it. They seek it out. They've turned their deadly world into a crucible that forges strength." "You're not suggesting," her second-in-command began. "I am." Saren straightened to her full height. "Plot a course for Earth. Prepare first contact protocols." She looked back at the tactical display, where the spreading darkness of the Void continued its relentless advance. "We've spent 3 cycles running from death. Perhaps it's time we learned from those who face it every day." The decision sent ripples of anxiety through her crew. The humans were primitive by Vanaran standards, barely able to reach their own satellite. Their technology was crude, their society still fragmented into nation-states. But Saren saw something in them that her own people had lost generations ago: the fire of defiance against an uncaring universe. "Admiral," her communications officer spoke up hesitantly, "the longer we delay, the more colonies we lose. Are you certain about this?" Saren watched a video of human rescue workers forming the human chain to save people from a flood. "Our technology hasn't saved us. Our philosophy hasn't saved us. Our art hasn't saved us." Her scales rippled with determination. "Perhaps what we need isn't more advancement, but a reminder of what it means to struggle, to fight, to refuse to submit even when facing impossible odds." She gave the order, and the Vanaran fleet began its approach to Earth. As they drew closer, Saren composed the message that would forever change 2 civilizations. "People of Earth, we come to you in our darkest hour. We have seen how you thrive in conditions that would kill most species. We have watched you face death, not with resignation but with determination. Our civilization stands on the brink of extinction, And we need more than your strength. We need your spirit. Will you teach us how to fight?" General Sarah Chen stood at the window of the hastily assembled Joint Species Command Center, watching Vanaran engineers install their crystalline technology alongside human military equipment. The contrast was striking. Their elegant, almost artistic designs next to the utilitarian hardware of Earth's armed forces. 3 weeks had passed since first contact, and the world was still reeling from the revelation that not only were we not alone in the universe. "Their latest simulation results, General." Colonel James Martinez handed her a tablet. "Their weapons are impressive, but they've never designed anything with the intent to kill. Even their mining equipment is designed to minimize disruption to spatial harmony, whatever that means." Chen scrolled through the data, her expression grim. The Vanaran fleet had brought enough technological advancement to launch humanity centuries forward, but their fundamental approach to existence was so foreign it might as well have been from another universe. Which, she supposed, it effectively was. "How are they handling the gravity?" she asked, watching a Vanaran scientist take careful steps in their protective exosuit. "Better than expected, thanks to Dr. Patel's modifications to their environmental systems. But it's their psychological adaptation that's the real challenge." Martins gestured to where a group of Vanarans was observing a basic combat training session. Even through their environmental suits, their distress at watching humans deliberately engage in conflict was obvious. "Admiral Saren requests your presence in the Strategic Command Center," her aide announced. "The long-range sensors have detected something." The Strategic Command Center was a blend of human and Vanaran technology. Admiral Saren's iridescent scales shifted in patterns that Chen had learned indicated deep concern. The alien leader had adapted remarkably well to working with humans, even if their methods often horrified her. "The Void has changed course," Saren announced without preamble. "It's heading directly for the Proxima Centauri colony. We believe it has detected our presence." Chen studied the holographic display. The Void appeared as a region of absolute darkness, consuming light and matter alike. "How long?" "At current velocity, 3 Earth months." Saren's scales rippled. "We've never seen it move with such purpose before." "Then we have 3 months to teach your people how to fight." Chen turned to Martinez. "Accelerate the training program. All personnel, human and Vanaran, begin combat drills immediately." "General," a Vanaran scientist named Kirill spoke up, their voice trembling through the translator. "Our people have lived in harmony for millennia. The very concept of violence is exactly what you need to survive." Chen's voice was firm, but not unkind. "You've shown us wonders we never imagined possible. Now let us show you something your people have forgotten. How to stand and fight when running isn't an option anymore." The next weeks were a crash course in warfare for a species that had evolved past it. Humans taught Vanarans how to modify their mining tools into weapons, how to use their environmental manipulation technology for defense, and most importantly, how to overcome their instinctive aversion to conflict. Progress was slow at first. Many Vanarans would freeze at the first sign of simulated combat. But then something unexpected happened during a routine training exercise. A mechanical failure in the facility's power core threatened to cause an explosion. Without hesitation, a Vanaran engineer named Lyra used their crystalline technology to contain the blast, putting themselves at risk to protect others. "You see," Chen said to Saren afterward, "the capacity for courage was always there. You just needed to remember it." Saren's scales shifted in a pattern Chen had never seen before. "Perhaps that is why the universe guided us to Earth. Not just for your ability to survive in harsh conditions, but because you never forgot what our people learned to forget, that sometimes preservation requires action, not just observation." The breakthrough changed everything. Once the Vanarans understood that combat could be an extension of their protective instincts rather than a violation of their principles, their progress accelerated dramatically. They began adapting their technology in ways that surprised even them, finding applications their peaceful society had never considered. "We've completed the modifications to the fleet's crystal matrices," Lyra reported. By inverting the harmonic resonance patterns, we can actually create focused energy beams that could be used as weapons. The engineer's scales dulled slightly at the admission. Not weapons, Chen corrected. Tools of survival. Sometimes the most peaceful action is to stand and fight. As the deadline approached, the combined human Vanaran force began to take shape. The elegant Vanaran ships now bristled with hybrid weapon systems. Their crews, once dedicated purely to scientific exploration, trained alongside human military advisors. They were far from traditional warriors, but they had found their own way to adapt. The Void has entered the Proxima Centauri system, Martinez reported one morning. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Chen watched a Vanaran crew run through combat drills with smooth efficiency that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. Send word to all commands. Operation Luminous Shield begins in 24 hours. As she turned to leave, she caught sight of her reflection in one of the crystalline panels. Behind her, human and Vanaran personnel worked side by side, each learning from the other. Perhaps this was humanity's true strength, not just our ability to survive, but our ability to teach others to do the same. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched from the observation deck as the latest batch of Vanaran recruits attempted the combat simulation. Their crystalline ships, now modified with human-inspired weapon systems, moved through the asteroid field with increasing confidence. 6 weeks of intensive training had begun to show results, even if they weren't quite what anyone had expected. Interesting approach, Lieutenant Sarah Wong commented beside her. They watched as one Vanaran ship, instead of firing at the drone target directly, used its harmonic resonators to alter the structure of a nearby asteroid, causing it to fragment and create a debris field that disabled the target. They're still avoiding direct confrontation, but they're getting creative. They're adapting the battle to fit their nature, not the other way around, Rodriguez replied. Maybe that's what we've been doing wrong. We've been trying to turn scientists into soldiers when we should have been helping them find their own way to fight. The simulation continued as more Vanaran ships demonstrated unconventional tactics. One used its environmental systems to create a localized spatial distortion, effectively hiding 3 other vessels. Another modified its sensors to turn the targeting system's own energy back on itself. None of these were traditional combat maneuvers, but they were undeniably effective. Down in the main hangar, Dr. Lyra was working with a team of human engineers to modify more ships. The Vanaran scientist had become something of a bridge between the two species, finding ways to blend their disparate approaches to technology and conflict. The crystal matrices respond to emotional resonance, Lyra explained, their scales shifting, and what Rodriguez had learned was excitement. We always use that connection to create harmony, but we've discovered that other emotions, like the human concept of righteous anger, can create entirely new effects. Rodriguez watched as Lyra demonstrated, touching a crystal panel with their scaled hand. The crystal glowed briefly, and a beam of energy shot out, not destroying its target, but rather altering its fundamental structure at an atomic level. We're not killing, Lyra said softly. We're transforming. This feels right. The breakthrough led to a complete revision of their combat doctrine. Instead of trying to force the Vanarans to adopt human military tactics, the training program now focused on helping them develop their own unique approach to warfare. The results were stunning. Admiral Saren and General Chen observed a full-scale exercise from the command center. The space around Earth's moon had become a testing ground for their hybrid warfare techniques. Vanaran ships moved in complex patterns that seemed more like a dance than a military formation, their modified crystals pulsing with energy. They're starting to understand, Chen noted. Not just the mechanics of fighting, but the philosophy behind it. The idea that sometimes conflict is necessary for preservation. Saren's scales rippled in agreement. We had forgotten that the universe maintains balance through both creation and destruction. Your people reminded us of this fundamental truth. But not all the learning went one way. The humans found themselves adopting elements of Vanaran philosophy, particularly their emphasis on harmony and interconnection. The joint crews began to operate with a precision that went beyond mere military efficiency, achieving a kind of synchronized awareness that made their ships move like living things. Energy spike detected. The alert came during a routine patrol exercise. A section of space near Jupiter suddenly darkened, and a probe disappeared into the void. It wasn't the main entity they were preparing to fight, but rather what the Vanarans called a scout, a smaller manifestation of the same force. Without orders, without hesitation, the mixed human Vanaran patrol group responded. The Vanaran ships moved into a complex formation, their crystals resonating in harmony. The human vessels provided covering fire, not with traditional weapons, but with modified energy projectors based on Vanaran technology. The scout entity, a patch of darkness that seemed to eat light itself, tried to adapt to their attack. But it couldn't counter what it couldn't understand: the strange blend of human aggression and Vanaran harmony that confronted it. Within minutes, first blood, Rodriguez said, then quickly corrected herself when she saw Lyra's scales pale. First victory, she amended. It is a beginning, Lyra agreed, their color returning. We have found a way to fight that does not require us to become something we are not. The success had an electrifying effect on both species. The Vanarans began to approach their training with new enthusiasm, no longer seeing it as a corruption of their peaceful nature, but as an evolution of their principles. The humans, in turn, learned to look beyond pure force, finding strength in subtlety and harmony. As the deadline for confronting the main void entity drew closer, the combined fleet grew stronger. But their true strength wasn't in their weapons or tactics. It was in the unique synthesis they had achieved, a way of fighting that preserved life by transforming conflict itself. They were creating something entirely new: warriors who could fight without losing their souls, and peacekeepers who understood that sometimes peace must be defended with force. The Void arrived at the edge of the solar system on a Thursday. Lieutenant Sarah Wong watched the sensor readings with a kind of detached fascination as the massive anomaly consumed Pluto, the dwarf planet vanishing into absolute darkness as if it had never existed. "How are you so calm?" Lyra asked from their station, the Vanaran scales shifting rapidly through patterns of distress. That thing just erased a planetary body from existence. Wong checked her coffee mug. Empty, of course. "I'm terrified," she admitted with a small smile. But humans have a long history of being terrified and doing what needs to be done anyway. We call it courage. The concept had been difficult for the Vanarans to grasp. Their society had eliminated most sources of fear generations ago, making the emotion itself almost foreign to them. Now, faced with an existential threat, they were struggling to process both the fear and their responses to it. Admiral Saren and General Chen watched from the command center as the combined fleet took up defensive positions. The formation they'd chosen was unlike anything either military had used before. A complex, almost organic pattern that blended Vanaran harmony principles with human tactical doctrine. "The Void is accelerating," Martins reported, his voice steady despite the news. "It's already past Neptune's orbit. At this rate, it'll reach the inner system in less than 48 hours. Chen nodded, studying the holographic display where a massive section of space simply ended. No stars, no light, no matter. Just nothing. Launch the probes. Let's see how it reacts to our new toys." The probes were a joint creation. Vanaran crystalline technology, enhanced with human ingenuity. As they approached the Void, they began transmitting data that made even the seasoned human scientists pause. "It's not just consuming matter," Dr. Patil announced, her fingers flying over her console. "It's rewriting the fundamental laws of physics within its influence. No wonder the Vanarans couldn't fight it with conventional weapons. It simply changes the rules until those weapons can't exist anymore." "But we're not playing by its rules anymore," Rodriguez added from her command ship. The carrier group she led had been extensively modified, now serving as platforms for the hybrid weapon systems they'd developed. The void seemed to pause, as if sensing the difference in its prey. The darkness rippled, tendrils of nothingness reaching out toward the probe network. But instead of being consumed, the probes responded with pulses of crystalline energy that had been harmonized with human emotional patterns, determination, courage, and most importantly, controlled fear. "It's working," Lyra breathed, their scales brightening. "The probes are maintaining position. It can't simply absorb them like before." But their small victory was short-lived. The void's response was immediate and overwhelming. It didn't just accelerate. It seemed to tear through space itself, covering the distance to Uranus in minutes rather than hours. The gas giant disappeared into the darkness, and the shockwave of its destruction sent both human and Vanaran ships scrambling. "All ships, maintain formation." Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "This is what we trained for. Fear is natural. Fear is human. But it doesn't control us. We control it." The Vanaran crews, who had been on the verge of panic, found their center in these words. They had learned from humans that fear wasn't a weakness. It was information, energy that could be channeled and used. "Energy spike," Wong called out. "It's trying to open a direct corridor to Earth." This was what they had feared, the void attempting to bypass their defenses entirely. But they had prepared for this too. The combined fleet moved as one, their ships arranging themselves in an intricate pattern that somehow seemed to bend space itself. "Initiating Harmony Protocol," Saren announced, her scales now steady and bright. "All ships, synchronize your crystal matrices." The void struck their defensive line like a tsunami of darkness, but this time it met something new. The Vanaran ships pulsed with energy that had been shaped by human emotions, not just courage and determination, but also fear, anger, and hope. The human vessels added their own modified weapons to the mix, creating a web of force that didn't try to destroy the darkness, but rather transform it. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the battle hung in balance. The void pressed against their defenses, trying to unmake the very space they occupied. But the combined fleet held, their fear transformed into a kind of strength the entity had never encountered before. "We can't hold this forever," Rodriguez reported, her ship's systems straining under the load. "But we don't have to. Look." The sensors showed something unprecedented. Where their combined energies met the void's influence, space itself seemed to be healing. The nothingness was being forced to obey the normal laws of physics again, if only within a small bubble of their influence. "Now we know it can be done," Chen said, her voice carrying across all command channels. "It can be fought. It can be stopped. And most importantly, it can feel fear too." The void retreated, pulling back to the orbit of Saturn. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The entity had never faced resistance like this before, and its next attack would be adapted to their defenses. As the fleet regrouped and began emergency repairs, Wong found Lyra staring at the tactical display, their scales shifting in a pattern she had never seen before. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I understand now," Lyra replied softly, "why your people write stories about heroes facing monsters. It's not about being fearless. It's about being afraid and fighting anyway. About turning fear into something useful." Wong nodded, pouring 2 cups of coffee from her newly filled thermos. "Welcome to being human," she said, offering one to her alien friend. "Now let's go help make some new stories for your people to tell." After 3 days of continuous battle, Earth's orbital space had become a graveyard of broken ships and crystalline debris. The void had pressed its advantage relentlessly, adapting to each strategy the combined fleet deployed. But humanity and their Vanaran allies had done something the entity hadn't expected. They had adapted faster. "Status report," General Chen demanded, her uniform stained with coffee and her eyes red from lack of sleep. The command center's holographic display showed the remaining forces, less than 60% of what they'd started with, but still fighting. The void is consolidating its position around Mars, Martins reported. Our latest sensor data suggests it's digesting everything it consumed, converting matter into something else. Admiral Saren's scales had taken on a deep, determined blue. It's preparing for a final push. It means to end this here. Then so do we. Rodriguez's voice came through the comm. Her carrier group had been reduced to 3 ships, but they had proven surprisingly effective at coordinating the hybrid warfare tactics they'd developed. The prototype is ready. The prototype was their last, best hope, a weapon that nobody had been entirely sure would work. It combined Vanaran crystal technology with human quantum physics in ways that theoretically shouldn't have been possible. They called it the Horizon Drive. All remaining ships, form up on the flagship, Chen ordered. This is humanity's home. We don't need to win forever. We just need to win today. The combined fleet moved into position, their formation now more fluid and natural than ever before. Months of fighting together had forged them into something entirely new, not quite human, not quite Vanaran, but stronger than either. Lyra's voice came through the command channel, steady despite their obvious exhaustion. Crystal matrices are synchronized. Human emotional patterns are integrated. We're ready to begin the sequence. The void seemed to sense their preparation. The darkness that had consumed Mars began to move, not toward them, but around them, trying to encircle the entire fleet. Space itself buckled and warped as fundamental forces were rewritten. It's trying to change the rules again, Wong observed from her station. But this time, we're not playing by any rules at all. The Horizon Drive activated. Every ship in the fleet, human and Vanaran alike, began to pulse with an energy that defied description. It wasn't just light or power. It was pure possibility, the kind of potential that had existed at the beginning of the universe. All ships, execute final approach, Chen commanded. Remember your training. Remember who we are. Remember why we fight. The void struck first, lashing out with tendrils of nothingness that could erase matter from existence. But where before such attacks had been devastating, now they met something new. The combined fleet didn't try to resist or deflect the attack. They absorbed it, transformed it, and sent it back changed. The human concept of victory through sacrifice, Saren had said during the planning sessions, combined with our understanding of universal harmony. Not to destroy our enemy, but to make it part of something greater. The battle that followed would be remembered differently by every species that witnessed it. The humans would speak of courage and determination, of standing firm in the face of impossible odds. The Vanarans would write songs about the harmony of opposites, the dance of creation and destruction. But the truth was both simpler and more complex. As the Horizon Drive reached full power, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The void, for the first time in its existence, faced something it couldn't simply consume or rewrite. Now, Chen's order rang across all channels. Every ship activated their modified crystals simultaneously. The energy they had been gathering, shaped by human emotion and Vanaran harmony, burst outward in a wave that defied physics. It didn't fight the darkness. It embraced it, accepted it, and in doing so, changed its very nature. The void, transformed. Where there had been emptiness, now there was possibility. Where there had been destruction, now there was potential. The entity that had threatened 2 civilizations became something else entirely, something that neither humanity nor the Vanarans fully understood. Look, Lyra whispered, their scales shimmering with wonder. Where Mars had been consumed, now something new was forming. Not quite a planet, but not quite void either. A place where the laws of physics were different, but not hostile to life. The battle was over, but its effects would ripple through both civilizations forever. The humans had learned that victory didn't always mean destruction, that strength could be found in harmony as well as conflict. The Vanarans had discovered that peace wasn't the absence of struggle, but the wisdom to know how to struggle properly. In the aftermath, as the combined fleet limped back to Earth, Wong found herself sharing one last coffee with Lyra in the observation deck. "What happens now?" the Vanaran asked, their scales shifting through patterns of uncertainty and hope. Wang looked out at the stars, now seeming somehow brighter than before. Now we do what humanity has always done. We rebuild, we learn, we grow stronger. And most importantly, we do it together. Admiral Saren and General Chen stood in the command center, watching the cleanup operations begin. "Your people taught us how to fight," Saren said, her scales now showing a pattern that translated roughly to grateful wisdom. "And your people taught us that there are more ways to fight than we had imagined," Chen replied. "Perhaps that's the greatest victory of all." As Earth rotated below them, its blue oceans and white clouds unchanged by the cosmic battle that had just taken place, both leaders knew that this was not an ending but a beginning. Humanity had proven itself not just as warriors, but as teachers, showing a peaceful species how to defend itself without losing its soul. The Vanarans had shown that even the most gentle of species could find strength when needed, and that harmony and power were not opposing forces but complementary ones. Together, they had done more than save Earth. They had created something new, a way of existing that combined the best of both species, proving that the universe had room for both warriors and peacekeepers, for both harmony and strength. And in the vast depths of space, where a patch of transformed void now sparkled with new possibilities, the future waited to be discovered.